Imagine walking into a Rolls-Royce showroom. You point at the newest Phantom. The salesman smiles. "Excellent choice, sir." The price? Just over $600,000. Instead of asking about financing, you simply pull out a credit card. No stack of paperwork, no negotiations, no waiting for bank approval. Just one swipe. Now, that might sound unbelievable, but here's what's even stranger. Some of the richest people in the world, the kind of people who own private jets, islands, and billion-dollar companies, still choose to pay with a credit card. Not because they don't have the money, but because of which card they're holding. And surprisingly, it's often American Express. Not Visa, not MasterCard. American Express. Now, you might be thinking, so what? It's just another credit card. That's exactly what most people think, until they discover one small detail. The most famous American Express card can't be applied for, you can't visit a website, you can't fill out a form, you can't even buy it. Even if your bank account has $100 million sitting in it, that still doesn't guarantee you'll get one. Instead, American Express has to invite you. Think about how crazy that is. Usually companies chase wealthy customers, but somehow, American Express flipped the game. It made some of the richest people on Earth wait for an invitation. So the question isn't, how expensive is the card? The real question is, why would billionaires care so much about carrying it? Is it because of the airport lounges, the rewards, the cashback, or is there a secret hiding behind this little piece of metal? Because once you look closer, you realize something fascinating. American Express isn't just competing with Visa or MasterCard. In many ways, it's playing an entirely different game. And the reason has almost nothing to do with credit cards. It has everything to do with trust. A trust so powerful that it took more than 170 years to build. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. American Express wasn't even created to issue credit cards. In fact, when the company was born, credit cards didn't even exist. Back then, if you were wealthy and wanted to travel across the world, there was one terrifying problem that could destroy your fortune before you even reached your destination. And solving that problem would completely change the future of money. But to understand how, we have to travel back more than 170 years. The year was 1850. There were no smartphones, no online banking, no PayPal, no Visa, and definitely no credit cards. If you were wealthy, your money was physical. Gold coins, cash, valuable documents, everything had to travel with you. Now imagine you're a successful businessman living in New York. You've spent months planning a trip to Europe. Your goal is simple: meet suppliers, buy expensive goods, expand your business. But before you even board the ship, you face one terrifying question. How do you carry your money safely? Because crossing the Atlantic wasn't just a long journey. It was dangerous. Pirates still existed. Ships disappeared in storms. Thieves targeted wealthy travelers. And if someone stole your trunk, years of wealth could disappear overnight. Back then, there was no customer support to call, no bank to freeze your account, no password to reset. Once your money was gone, it was gone forever. For rich travelers, the biggest fear wasn't the ocean, it was carrying enough money to survive the journey. And that's exactly where American Express saw an opportunity. But here's something most people don't know. American Express didn't start as a financial company. It was actually a delivery company. Its job was simple: move valuable packages safely across America. Documents, cash, gold, important business shipments. Day after day, the company built a reputation for something incredibly valuable: reliability. People trusted American Express with things they couldn't afford to lose. And over time, the company noticed something. Travelers didn't just need transportation, they needed confidence. So instead of asking, how can we move more packages, American Express asked a much better question: how can we remove fear from travel? That single question changed the company's future. Instead of inventing a faster ship or a stronger lock, they came up with an idea that sounded almost impossible for its time. What if people didn't have to carry large amounts of cash at all? Imagine walking into an American Express office before your trip. You hand over your money. Instead of receiving a bag of cash, you receive a secure financial document backed by the company's promise. If it was lost, it could be replaced. If it was stolen, a thief couldn't simply spend it. More importantly, wherever American Express had an office, it stood behind that promise. Today, that idea sounds normal. Back then, it was revolutionary. For the first time, people weren't just trusting a bag full of money, they were trusting a company's word. And that's a much harder thing to earn. Slowly, wealthy travelers began choosing American Express not because it was the only option, but because it gave them something money couldn't buy: peace of mind. Without realizing it, the company had started building something far more valuable than a payment system. It was building a reputation that would soon be tested in the worst possible way. Because just a few decades later, the world would be thrown into chaos. Banks would stop honoring payments. Millions of people would panic, and the promise American Express had made to its customers would face its greatest challenge yet: the decision it made during that crisis. would define the company for the next 100 years. For years, American Express had built its reputation one customer at a time. Travelers trusted its promise. Merchants accepted its documents. Business was booming. Then, everything changed. 1914, the First World War had begun. Across Europe, fear spread faster than bullets. Governments declared emergencies. Borders became unpredictable. Banks started shutting their doors. And suddenly, thousands of Americans traveling across Europe found themselves trapped, not because they couldn't get home, because they couldn't access their money. Imagine waking up in Paris. Yesterday, you were wealthy. Today, the hotel refuses your payment. The local bank won't release your money. Shops stop accepting your financial documents. The cash you thought you had might as well not exist. Within days, successful businessmen, tourists, even wealthy families were standing in long lines, desperately searching for anyone who could help. And here's the frightening part. Many of the institutions people trusted most simply disappeared. Banks protected themselves. Governments focused on the war. Nobody wanted responsibility, except one company, American Express. While uncertainty spread across Europe, American Express kept its offices open. Employees worked around the clock helping stranded travelers. People who walked into an American Express office weren't greeted with excuses. They were greeted with solutions. If their documents were genuine, American Express honored its promise. Money was released. Travel arrangements were organized. Families finally had a way to survive until they could return home. Think about what that meant. When fear was everywhere, trust became the most valuable currency in the world. American Express wasn't legally forced to help everyone. It simply understood something its competitors didn't. A promise only matters when it's difficult to keep. Anyone can claim to care when business is good. The real test comes when keeping your word costs you money. And for American Express, that test came during one of the most chaotic moments in modern history. People remembered it, not because of an advertisement, not because of a reward program, but because someone finally kept their promise when almost nobody else did. Years later, travelers returned home and told the same story. When everything else stopped working, American Express didn't. Those stories spread from family to family, business to business, city to city. Without spending millions on marketing, American Express had earned something much more powerful, a reputation. And here's what's fascinating. Reputations don't spread through commercials. They spread through experiences. One satisfied customer tells another. One remarkable story becomes 10, then 100, then thousands. Slowly, American Express stopped being known as just another company. It became known as the company you could trust when everything went wrong. But just when it seemed like nothing could damage that reputation, a man arrived with a plan so clever it fooled banks, investors, inspectors, and nearly destroyed American Express forever. Not with guns, not with war, but with something as ordinary as cooking oil. And what happened next would become one of the biggest corporate frauds in American history. By the early 1960s, American Express had become one of the most trusted names in America. People trusted its travel services. Businesses trusted its financial products. Its reputation had been built over decades. But all it takes is one mistake to destroy a reputation that took a lifetime to build. And that mistake came from a man almost nobody had heard of. His name was Anthony Tino DeAngelis. On paper, he looked like a successful businessman. He claimed to own massive storage tanks filled with vegetable oil. And because vegetable oil was valuable, banks were willing to lend him millions of dollars. But banks didn't just take his word for it. They wanted proof. That's where American Express entered the story. One of its subsidiaries inspected storage tanks and issued warehouse receipts, official documents confirming how much oil was supposedly being stored. Those receipts became the key. Tino took them to dozens of banks. Each receipt looked genuine. Each one carried the credibility of American Express. And with those documents, banks handed him millions of dollars. Everything looked legitimate until one day, someone opened the tanks and discovered something unbelievable. They weren't full of vegetable oil. They were mostly filled with water. Just a thin layer of oil floated on top. Enough to fool inspectors, enough to fool banks, enough to fool everyone for years. Tino had been moving that thin layer of oil from tank to tank during inspections. The same oil made every storage tank appear full. It was one of the biggest financial frauds America had ever seen. Almost overnight, banks lost enormous amounts of money. Newspapers exploded with headlines. Investors panicked. And then, everyone turned toward American Express. Your inspectors signed those receipts. Your name gave them credibility. You should pay for the losses. Legally, American Express didn't owe anyone a dollar. It hadn't borrowed the money. It hadn't committed the fraud. The company could have gone to court and probably won. Most businesses would have. Most CEOs would have protected profits. After all, why should shareholders pay for someone else's crime? But then, American Express did something that shocked Wall Street. Its CEO stood in front of the public and announced that the company would compensate many of the affected parties, not because the law demanded it, because the company believed its reputation was worth more than the money. It was an incredibly risky decision. The payout cost around $60 million. At the time, that was a staggering amount. Investors were furious. The company's stock price collapsed. Financial experts predicted the end of American Express. Many believed the company would never recover. If you were watching from the outside, it looked like the worst business decision imaginable. But there was one man who saw something completely different. His name was Warren Buffett. While everyone else was selling, Buffett was buying. He invested a huge portion of his investment partnership into American Express. People thought he had lost his mind. Why would anyone invest in a company that had just suffered one of the biggest scandals in corporate America? Because Buffett wasn't looking at the headlines. He was looking at human behavior. He asked himself one simple question. After all this is over, will people stop trusting American Express? His answer was no, because the scandal wasn't about customers losing faith. It was about a company proving that protecting trust mattered more than protecting short-term profits. Buffett later explained that brands live inside people's minds, and in his eyes, American Express had just strengthened its position, not weakened it. Within a few years, the panic faded. Customers stayed loyal, business recovered, the company grew even stronger, and Buffett's investment became one of the greatest decisions of his career. That's the moment American Express stopped being just another financial company. It became something far more valuable, a symbol of trust. But here's the fascinating part. Trust alone doesn't create a business empire. The real genius came later, when American Express figured out how to turn that trust into one of the most profitable business models in the financial world. And that's also the reason billionaires still choose it today. By now, you might be thinking, okay, American Express built trust. But how does that explain why billionaires still choose it today? After all, a Visa card can buy a Ferrari. A MasterCard can book a 5-star hotel. So, what makes American Express different? The answer isn't the card, it's the relationship behind it. Here's something most people never realize. When you pay with a Visa card, Visa isn't actually lending you money. Your bank is. Visa simply moves information between banks. The same is true for MasterCard. They're incredibly powerful networks, but they don't really know you. Your bank handles your account. Your bank approves your credit. Your bank solves your problems. Visa is simply the highway your payment travels on. American Express chose a completely different path. It became the bank, the card issuer, the payment network, and the customer service, all at once. That means every time you use your American Express card, you're dealing directly with American Express. No middleman. No passing responsibility. Just one company. At first, that sounds like more work, but it gave American Express something priceless. It knew its customers better than almost anyone else. It knew how they spent, where they traveled, what they valued, not to spy on them, but to serve them better. And that's where the magic begins. Imagine you're a billionaire. Do you really care about earning another 2% cash back? Probably not. Saving a few $100s means nothing when your business makes millions every day. What you can't buy is time. Time is the one thing money can never replace. American Express understood this better than anyone. Instead of asking, how can we give wealthy people more points? They asked, how can we save them more time? Need a last-minute table at a fully booked restaurant? One phone call? Need help replacing your passport while traveling? One phone call. Need to rearrange an international trip because of an emergency? One phone call. The real luxury wasn't free champagne in an airport lounge. It was knowing that when life became complicated, someone else would handle it. For the ultra-wealthy, that's worth far more than cash back. But American Express wasn't finished. In 1999, it launched something that became a symbol of status around the world. The Centurion card, better known as the Black Card. Unlike most premium cards, there was no application form, no public sign-up page, no guaranteed income requirement. Instead, American Express quietly chose its customers. That decision completely changed how people viewed the card. Psychologists call this the scarcity effect. The harder something is to get, the more valuable people believe it is. Luxury brands have used this strategy for decades. Hermes doesn't sell everyone a Birkin bag. Ferrari limits production of certain models. Patek Philippe doesn't make enough watches for everyone who wants one. American Express applied the same principle to finance. The invitation itself became part of the product. But here's the biggest misconception. People think billionaires carry the black card because it makes them look rich. In reality, Most billionaires don't need a card to prove they're wealthy. Their businesses already do that. They carry it because it represents something they've spent decades building. A reputation. That's the hidden genius of American Express. For more than 170 years, it didn't chase transactions. It chased trust. Every difficult decision, every promise it kept, every customer it refused to abandon, added another brick to a reputation that competitors couldn't simply copy. And that's why, even today, when billionaires have access to every financial product in the world, many still reach for the same name. Not because it's the flashiest, not because it has the best rewards, but because trust compounds, just like money. So, the next time you see someone pull out an American Express card, remember, you're not just looking at a payment method, you're looking at the result of more than 170 years of keeping promises. And maybe that's the biggest lesson this story teaches us. People don't stay loyal to products. They stay loyal to companies that earn their trust, whether you're building a billion-dollar business, a personal brand, or even a YouTube channel. The same rule applies. You don't build a great reputation with one viral moment. You build it, one promise at a time. Because in the end, money can buy almost anything. But trust has to be earned. If you enjoyed this documentary and learned something new, hit the like button. It helps this video reach more people. And if you're curious about the hidden strategies behind the world's biggest companies, billionaire psychology, and the business lessons they leave behind, subscribe, because every week we uncover another story hiding in plain sight. Until next time.